On tonight's Wales at 6, bosses knew the Horizon IT system was capable of errors, the findings of a damning report into the Post Office scandal. Dowie, a former sub-postmaster, says the damage is done.
It's ruined people's lives completely, broke families. My parents, unfortunately, aren't here to see exoneration.
Also on the programme, shaken but not deterred, training cancelled for Wales women as the team bus crashes in Switzerland on their Euros tour.
This is really developing right now, so we're just trying to be as clear and transparent as possible. I think everyone from all the reports everyone's okay. Our priority is just to get them all together and away from the scene.
Plus, the mini replicas with a huge legacy. A community marks the extraordinary history of the pedal cars crafted by coal miners.
And join us on the beach, which has been chosen as Wales's best. And let's face it, we've got an awful lot of coastline. But as to where it is, well, you'll just have to stay watching whilst I gather more shells.
Hello, good evening to you. The story of the Postmasters scandal is so well known. There have been plays, books and a TV series marking their plight. Today, a new report into the biggest miscarriage of justice in the UK lays bare what investigators claim is the disastrous consequences of the faulty IT system. There has also been criticism of the formidable difficulties victims have faced in getting compensation. Richard Morgan reports.
It's a scandal that ruined lives, led to jail and even suicide, and eventually saw the powerful forced to give an account of themselves. All because of a faulty IT system which saw hundreds of sub-postmasters wrongly accused of stealing money. Today, many of them gathered in London for the publication of part one of a report into what happened.
Many thousands of people have suffered serious financial detriment. And for a sizable proportion, that detriment subsists. Many businesses and homes have been lost. Bankruptcies have occurred. Marriage and families have been wrecked.
Between 1999 and 2015, the Post Office prosecuted more than 700 sub-postmasters for theft and false accounting. In total, there were nearly 1,000 convictions. In 2017, Sir Alan Bates led more than 500 sub-postmasters in legal action against the Post Office, resulting in a compensation payout of £58 million 2 years later. In 2021, dozens had their convictions quashed in court. 3 years later, Parliament passed a law overturning every wrongful conviction.
You know why we're here, Alan. And you know you're a day early.
The affair was brought to wider public attention by ITV drama Mr Bates versus the Post Office, but even now many are still waiting for compensation. Dewi Lewis was jailed after being wrongfully convicted of stealing more than £50,000 from his post office in Gwynedd. He's had his payout, but says others are having to fight the authorities all over again.
The schemes have been made so difficult. It's strange that after all this time that a lot of people haven't received their redress and are being made to fight for that as well. Not just fighting for clearing their names, but fighting for the redress that should be a given.
The government says it will listen to the report's recommendations.
It should not have needed the ITV drama to stimulate action to overturn hundreds of unjust convictions. But we are determined to do more on redress and beyond.
But today doesn't mark the end of this story. And for many who've suffered at the hands of a once respected institution, true redress and responsibility feels far away.
And Richard's here now. A significant moment in this ongoing scandal. What comes next?
Well, Volume 2 comes next, Andrea. That's the short answer. That's being prepared as we speak, but it is complex and it might take until 2026. It is worth pointing out that this entire inquiry, which has been going on for some years, isn't about finding guilt. It's about Sir Win Williams making recommendations to the government, and it's for the government to decide whether they wish to act on them or not. One thing you do often hear from the victims, though, is that they want someone to be punished for what's happened. Attention now then will inevitably turn towards a possible criminal investigation. Only a handful of people have been questioned under caution so far. There's a huge amount of evidence. It's very complex. It seems unlikely we'll see any prosecutions or trials until at least 2028.
OK, Richard, we await the next part. Thank you. A new law allowing councils in Wales to charge a visitor levy has been passed. It will see visitors pay up to £1.30 per person per night on stays in hotels, B&Bs and self-catered accommodation. The law will come into force in 2027. Over 200 jobs are set to go at a Dow Chemical factory. Dow said the jobs will be lost over a 3-year period due to what they described as structural challenges. Well, there for us this evening is our reporter Liam McConkey. Liam, good evening. What more have the company said then?
Well, Andrea, Dow have said today that they will shut down basic siloxane operations here in Barry to strengthen the company's competitive position in the UK and in Europe. They say that job losses have been part of the consultation with staff and union reps, and it's been able to reduce the number of roles affected from 291 to 220 over the next 3 years. Now, 850 people are employed at this plant in total behind me, which makes siloxanes. It's the chemical compound found in sealants and adhesives. Now, Unite the Union says of the 220 job losses, it expects 150 to come from voluntary redundancy. But Andrea, the union didn't mince its words earlier today. It says that it was a callous decision by Dow and it will devastate their members, their families and the local economy.
There's obviously people who are really concerned for the future. A lot of that depends on age demographic. I think there's a lot of uncertainty because we're obviously going through the individual consultation phase now. So there's uncertainty over the next couple of weeks. There's worry. A lot of the young people are worried for the future, but I'm hoping that we've worked hard with the business to mitigate that through the VR process.
Well, the company says that the factory behind me, other areas of the factory are unaffected. It says that the Barry site still remains a vital part of its operations and that the decision today is not a reflection on the Barry team. But the number of people who are employed here, the announcement today will be a bitter blow. And it's another mark on the manufacturing industry here in Wales.
Liam in Barry for us this evening. Thank you. A new poll has put Reform UK on course to become the largest party in the next Senedd. They were 2 points ahead of Plaid Cymru in a Sky News poll, with the Conservatives trailing on just 10%. And in a further boost to Nigel Farage's party, former Tory Welsh Secretary David Jones says he's joined Reform too. Joanne Gallagher is in his former Clwyd West constituency for us this evening. Hi, Joanne. So how significant is this defection then?
Well, it's very significant. David Jones, of course, was the MP here in Clwyd West from 2005 until 2024. He was a Conservative Party member for over 50 years, but deciding to leave the party in January, he said that the party no longer was his form of conservatism. Now, he has given us a statement and it reads, "I joined the Conservatives all those years ago because I believed it was the party that best reflected my values and beliefs. Regrettably, that is no longer the case. Today, Reform UK is the party that best represents my views and, I believe, those of many others who have become disillusioned with the two old major parties." Now, David Jones has always been seen as a bit of a rebel, and his former colleague and former Welsh Secretary Simon Hart says he's not surprised that he's joined Reform.
I think he was, he was always on my radar as in a state of, permanent distress when it came to his politics. And I mean, without being too flippant about it, the last time David sort of got behind a political leader, it was Liz Truss, and so he has a bit of a reputation for that kind of thing, and for being a bit radical.
Now, he won't stand for Reform, so you won't be seeing him in any elections, either in Westminster or Cardiff.
And Joanne, that poll also that we mentioned earlier, giving Nigel Farage's party even more momentum.
Yeah, this is the More in Common Sky News poll, and what it shows is Reform leading on 28%, Plaid Cymru on 26%, Labour on 23%, and the Conservatives on 10%. And this, of course, feeds into that momentum that Reform are trying to get ahead. They want to see Nigel Farage ultimately in number 10. OK, Joanne in Colwyn Bay for us. Thank you very much indeed. And you can see more on that, of course, on Sharp End tonight. That's on ITV One Wales at 10:45 p.m. The mother of a 9-year-old boy from Newport who died from sepsis after a gross failure of basic care says his death won't be in vain if she can help save other lives. Corinne Cope's son Dylan died from multi-organ failure brought on by sepsis. An Iron Bevan University Health Board launched an awareness campaign in partnership with Dylan's family earlier this year, which they say has reached tens of thousands of patients and staff. Hamish Alskerry reports.
I don't know who's going to watch this, but it's to everyone.
A passionate and happy 9-year-old, Dylan Cope's chance at life was taken far too young. His case was complex, but a coroner concluded last year that ultimately he was failed by the health system there to protect him. His mother, Corinne, has fought tirelessly since his avoidable death in 2022 for better awareness of sepsis in order to save other lives.
He should be here with us. It's brutally unfair that he isn't, for Dylan more than anyone. But the only thing we can do is help others. It's the right thing to do because Dylan and the thousands of others that are harmed or lose their life to sepsis, it can't be in vain.
A coroner concluded that neglect by medical staff contributed to Dylan's death. Just over a week after he was wrongly discharged from hospital, he died from septic shock and multi-organ failure caused by a perforated appendix.
Everyone was devastated by his death, but we've made some very significant changes that I hope would stop the situation arising again.
Why does it take the death of children for those changes to be made?
Yeah, so that's a very fair question. So pre-COVID, we did a lot of audit work that actually showed that our reliability at recognising sepsis when it arrives in the hospital is actually very good. As medical director, I think it's fair to say that Dylan's death was not caused by any one individual, and in fact he got good care in many areas within the department, but what we absolutely got wrong was as a result of a system error, which is that he went home without the senior review. So we entirely agree with the coroner's view that this was an avoidable death, and we've worked really hard for the last 3 or 4 years to prevent further avoidable deaths.
Corinne has put aside her grief to work with the Health Board on this awareness campaign about the signs of sepsis that we should all be looking out for.
If you or a loved one has any infection, whether viral, bacterial or fungal, just keep sepsis in your mind, particularly in the context of someone who might be deteriorating. With that knowledge, you'll be suitably equipped to challenge healthcare professionals and continually seek opinion until you feel satisfied.
Corinne feels strongly that the changes to sepsis procedures and awareness piloted at an Iron Bevan should be rolled out consistently across Wales. It's a view shared by the UK Sepsis Trust.
Sepsis doesn't just happen in Gwent and the Iron Bevan Health Board. It happens all across Wales, all across the UK. There are 8,000 cases approximately of sepsis each year in Wales, of which 1,800 people at least die, all across Wales. It's magnificent that an Iron Bevan are addressing this issue off the back of the Dylan Cope case, but this needs to be adopted all across Wales.
In response, the Welsh Government told us there have been improvements in the early detection, diagnosis and treatment for sepsis. In a statement, a spokesperson said they're working on a patient and family-initiated escalation approach named Call for Concern, which they say is taking steps in improving patient safety. An Iron Bevan says at least one patient has come forward since their awareness campaign began in May to say knowledge of sepsis saved their life. It's too late for Dylan, of course, but his mother Corinne hopes that if we all feel able to ask, could it be sepsis, many other lives can be saved too. Hamish Alskerry, ITV News.
Still to come on the programme, Des will have your forecast.
With temperatures beginning to rise, how hot will it get and will we reach heat wave criteria? Join me later and I'll tell you more.
Sounds like pretty good beach weather, and that's where we'll be a little later as we take a stroll on the coastline named the nation's best. Now, though, to Switzerland, where the Wales team bus was involved in a road traffic collision this afternoon. The squad were on their way to St Gallen Arena for their final preparations ahead of their game against France tomorrow night. But that session was cancelled. Our sports reporter Matt Southcombe is in the St Gallen Arena with more for us. Matt, this has been developing this afternoon. What's the latest that you know?
Well, Andrea, it's been a very sombre afternoon here in St Gallen, but here's what we do know. The team bus was involved in a road traffic collision shortly after leaving the team hotel earlier this afternoon, around 40 kilometres away from where we are here near Weinfelden. Now, all the players and staff that were on that bus are unharmed, and the FAW say that their priority was to get the players away from the scene as quickly as possible. It turned round and went back to the team hotel. An ambulance was at the scene tending to passengers in the other vehicle. Now, training here at the stadium was cancelled. Manager Rhian Wilkinson and captain Angharad James were in a separate vehicle ahead of the bus to come here to perform their media duties, but when they arrived they were visibly shaken, as were all the FAW staff on site. Here's manager Rhian Wilkinson earlier.
We are shaken just because we don't know. We're away from the team right now, so they've had to experience that. But equally, we have great group, and I've been assured everyone's fine. You know, we've practiced for the unexpected. I think that's what we can call this. And yeah, football is secondary, but equally we'll check back in, make sure everyone is in a good spot, and then we'll start working towards football again after that.
We will, of course, keep across those developments. But to matters on the pitch, how is the mood more generally ahead of tomorrow's match?
Well, Andrea, the FAW have since confirmed that the passengers in the other vehicle are also unharmed. So with that in mind, the team have decided to have some sort of training session at their team base in Weinfelden. And they know that on the pitch here tomorrow, they need to get something, because defeat would end their already slim hopes of qualifying for the knockout stages. But there will be question marks over their frame of mind, because this has been a very difficult afternoon for players and staff.
Not the build-up to the match they expected. Matt, thank you very much. Next this evening, the tale of the Austin J40 pedal car. Now, these mini replicas have a big story. Just 53 centimetres high and barely 69 centimetres wide. They were crafted by local men who could no longer work in the pits after developing lung disease. Megan Boot reports.
Saying hello to history. We've come to Tirabeth Primary School near Bargoed as they mark the site where these magnificent vehicles were made.
I'd been involved in the Vanished Wales programme for ITV. And the moment I saw the finished programme on screen and Adiola was saying, I'm standing here in the middle of this housing estate and there's nothing to show that the factory ever existed, I knew there and then that I had to do something about it.
And that's exactly what David, with the help of many others, did. This blue plaque will sit just across the road from the school where this factory once stood. Opened in 1949, it was the first of its kind, staffed by ex-miners, with every man on the factory floor registered as disabled.
To what extent do you have pneumoconiosis? 100%. Total discipline. What difference would you say this factory has made to your life? Well, it have made all the difference to my life.
And the pedal cars that they created were exquisite. Hugely popular in the 1950s and 60s, even the then Prince Charles had one. For Michael Sheehan, this is the first time he's been back in 72 years.
It's brought back some very good memories. Yeah, the community was something that I noticed straight away, and I think a lot of people would agree, the camaraderie that miners had developed when they're working underground, that shone through when they came to work in a much safer environment. And there was always a lot of humour and leg pulling. And to their eternal credit, those ex-miners made my job of running an efficient factory, they made it quite easy. I was very grateful to them.
David started work straight from school, becoming the longest serving employee after a 35-year stint.
Whenever anyone had a problem, there would be someone there coming to help you. Can I help you? And again, something that came from the pit, where you had to look after each other because you were in danger. everyone had a nickname. So going back to the pits, if someone had a problem, it's not going to say, oh, Di Jones, come and help me, because there may be 7 or 8 Di Joneses in there. So they give people nicknames, Di Small Coal, or Di Half Term, anything to identify them. And they brought those nicknames to the factory as well.
The J40s were made until 1971, and in 1999 the factory was closed and later demolished.
Well, the registration may say last one, but the legacy of the craftsmanship, the opportunity, the fun, well, that remains. Megan Boot, ITV News, near Bargoed.
Wonderful look back. Now, Wales is blessed with some beautiful beaches, isn't it? And with sun shining this week, there's no better time to enjoy a sandy stroll. But one Gwynedd beauty spot has been crowned the best beach in the country, according to the Times list. So what makes Shell Island in Llanbedr the nation's best? Well, Rob Shelley is there and he can tell us. It's over to you, Rob. Tell us everything.
Andrew, I'm working on my ITV game show format, Name That Bivalve. Anyway, welcome to Shell Island. It does sound like the sort of place that the famous Five and Timmy the dog would have had an adventure on, but it's also the place where the Times and the Sunday Times had an adventure, because out of our 800 plus miles of coastline, they decided that this was the best. But never done this before. It is perfect, Shell Island. The clue is in the name for live beachcombing. So you are never far from a bivalve or a mollusk. I've been trying to learn the difference between a winkle and, well, razor shells are quite easy. But basically, you are never far from something which looks so wonderful and alien and colourful that, frankly, they're going to come home in your pocket. Anyway, don't just take my word for it, because we've been asking people what the magic of Shell Island actually is. Do you think this could tick the box of being your best beach, let alone Wales's best beach?
I'd say it's definitely up there, but we've only been here a day, so quite a lot to explore still.
The sand's really nice. No, there's nothing in the sand. No shells. No
We're on something called Shell Island.
I know, and there's no shells.
Oh, it's beautiful.
What makes it beautiful?
Well, quite solitude in a way. Big expanse of beach. That's where I'm after.
We've actually picked one of those perfect days because it's not actually too warm and that sea breeze is wonderful. But as a notorious people watcher, one thing I have noticed, haven't seen anyone looking at their phone or using their phone. People have been connecting with the sound of the sea, the waves. This has a little bit of magic, this place.
Beautiful. Just make sure you leave some shells there for everybody else, Rob. Thank you very much. Well, the weather is next. It looks lovely there. Here's Des with more.
A clear start makes way for a day of ancient discoveries. Tool sponsors ITV Cymru Wales weather.
So when it came to our weather story today, we were able to enjoy plenty in the way of blue sky and light winds. Although this morning when we woke up, we did see a bit more of a fresher feel. That's going to change as you head into the overnight, certainly. It is high pressure that's a dominating feature of our weather, centred over our shores. Ultimately, the hot air that we saw a couple of weeks ago came up from Europe, this time day-on-day heating, because that air doesn't really go anywhere. This is a chart that shows where that high pressure is centred, and it takes us all the way through to Saturday. Nice wide ice bars, which means the winds fall fairly light. This is a frontal system that's trying to make its presence felt, but it's bumping up against that high and staying way towards the north and west. Over the course of tonight, though, a slight change. We do have a frontal system introducing a little bit more in the way of clouds. So yes, some of us tomorrow morning will wake up to a little bit of mist and murk, although nothing too problematic. Quite a still night. The winds are quite light. Temperatures dip down to around 10 degrees. Easy to calculate. That's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A little bit warmer towards the coast. So yes, that mist is there very early first thing, and it sticks around for a couple of hours. But ultimately, as we push through the course of the day and that system pushes that cloud down towards the south, as it does so, it starts to fracture and break. And once it does that, again, more in the way of heat. And all that's going to happen is those temperatures are going to climb. Warmer day tomorrow than what we saw today. We saw temperatures today in the early 20s, tomorrow maxing out at around 26. So the average for this stage in the year is around 18 degrees. degrees. So no rain tomorrow. And as you can see, I will leave you with the summary. This certainly will make some of you smile as you push through to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and dare I say Sunday, golden medallions all the way round.
TUI sponsors ITV Cymru Wales weather.
Making the most of summer. Piri sponsors ITV pollen count.
And unfortunately, I haven't got great news for you if you do suffer from allergies caused by pollen. With all that heat in the atmosphere, it isn't great news. Tuesday and Wednesday it's high, and on Thursday it rises, becoming very high.
Plenty of golden sunshine on the way. Thank you very much to Des. And that's all for now. Mike Griffiths is back. That's with your late update shortly after the late news. But for now, have yourselves a nice evening. Bye-bye.